As a developer, I'm sure you have plenty of unfinished games. You might be hyped starting a new project, but after some time, you lose interest and just leave the project unfinished. Here's some tips to help you actually finish your games and get them off your back. Before we get into the tips, be sure to like and subscribe for more game dev related content. Alright, first things first, don't scope your game too high. If you start making a game and plan on adding an open world, character customization, deep storytelling, RPG mechanics, deck construction, RTS mechanics, you definitely won't make it far. Especially if you're a solo developer. I don't mean that any of these things would hinder your project on their own, just don't try to add too much on your initial planning. Only when you have a fully fledged game, working as it should you think about adding new content. Start small and keep it how you started until you finished it. Keeping motivation is a big part of finishing your game. It might be hard sometimes, as working on your mechanics can be tedious. A great thing to do is to create a minimum viable product. Essentially, make it so it's just enough for it to be playable and for the player to understand the purpose of the game. One level, simple mechanics, and so on. This can help you see your project in a new light and maybe get you motivated to work on it more. Once you have a minimum viable product, a great thing to do is to give it to someone else to play. If you see them enjoying it, you might get motivation to work on the project more. If they leave criticism on your mechanics and the feel of the game, you get something to improve on. And if they absolutely don't like your game, maybe it's a sign that it's not worth working on. Stop before you're too deep. You don't need to work on a project. It's not your duty. I suggest working on different parts of the game individually. If you don't feel like programming deep mechanics for your game one day, work on level design. If you're tired of thinking up different levels for your game, work on some assets for your game. If you don't feel like doing anything, take a break for a day. Only if you take a break, you have to promise yourself to work on the project the next time you're available. Don't take the big picture account yet. Work in small bits and build up your game. Eventually, it will shine. Tell as many people as you can about your project. Once you've told them about your project, they will be hyped about it too. Tell your friends, tell your co-workers at the office. Tell your co-workers in the Zoom call. Tell people on Discord and tell everyone everywhere else. This creates hype around the project, which is not only good for marketing your game and getting players, but also for keeping you up with the project. When you bump into your friend, he might ask,
"Yo, what's up with your game? What's new?"
This way, you will always be reminded of your project, which might not bring motivation, but it sure does bring you back to working on the game. You can even start a devlog. This way you can get feedback on your game, as well as a reason to work on your project. Set goals. This goes in hand with working in segments. Say to yourself,
I will have this jump mechanic working by the end of the week.
And once the end of the week comes, set a new goal. Deadlines are important to set, as they will always remind you that you have to get that jump mechanic working by the weekend. A great way to get the feel of finishing games is Gamejams. Usually, Gamejams have a central theme you have to follow. These themes can be very detailed or very vague, giving you room for creativity. Examples of themes can be running out of space or an unconventional weapon, so you can come up with whatever you can. Some jams might also have a restriction. It's really simple. Maybe you only have to have one input for your game, or only one level, or anything like that. Game jams usually last all the way from 24 hours to a weekend, or even a month, but the main thing is that there is always a deadline. On each I/O, there is always a jam being hosted, and it's really easy to join. You can look at different jams on the jam calendar page and join just by clicking on a jam and clicking on join. Jams are not just a way to help you finish games, they are also a great way to connect with like-minded developers, so I highly suggest jamming. Finishing games is a skill, and any skill can be learned. My advice is for you to just finish games. Anyway, thanks for watching, and go finish your games.